Today, we are going to do a tier list ranking NBA teams going into the 2023-2024 NBA season. I made these tiers all myself, and before I hop into ranking every single team, let me explain what all these tiers mean. Starting from the top, we have championship contender. That should be pretty self-explanatory. If I put a team in this tier, it's because I think they have a realistic chance to win the championship. They should be one of the best teams in the league. They should have a chance of making it to the finals and winning it. Second tier is if things go right. So I'm gonna be putting teams in this tier if things go right for them, if they catch a little injury luck, if some of their players have breakout seasons, you know, they get some all-stars, players make jumps, maybe the coaching is really good. I think they have a chance to make it to the finals and maybe even win it. But like the tier says, things have to go right for them. Next tier is the playoff team. Again, another pretty self-explanatory tier. However, this tier is reserved for teams that will probably make the playoffs. They're probably playoff locks, probably not championship contenders. Even if things go well, I just can't see them winning. But I think with the talent they have, the roster they have, barring any major injuries, I think they're a lock to be a playoff or at the very minimum a play-in team. Next tier below that is play-in team. So this play-in team tier is going to be for teams like the OKC Thunder, like the Orlando Magic, Indiana Pacers last year, where they might not necessarily make the play-in. However, they're going to be a promising team. They're going to show us some flashes, and they're going to be looking to have a bright future. And the last tier is Victor Wembanyama. I know Wembanyama's already in the league, but this is basically teams that are tanking for the first pick. They have no chance to make the playoffs. They don't have any chance to make the play-in unless... No, this is strictly tanking teams. We know these teams are going to be bad. There may be some caveats that I throw in as I'm ranking these teams, but generally, we're going to stick to this tier system. Starting from the top, 76ers. Already off with a bang because this team is going through a lot of turmoil right now. We got the whole James Harden situation going on where, you know, he said he's not going to come back. He doesn't want to play for any franchise that Daryl Morey's involved in. He's requested a trade already. There's very little leverage for the 76ers. You know, other teams are aware that he wants to leave. It's a very messy situation right now. And because of the James Harden situation, it could also lead to a Joel Embiid falling out. Maybe he is going to be the next star to request a trade if things don't go well with the James Harden trade. And so for that reason, the 76ers are very up in the air right now. However, all that being said, I'm going to assume that Joel will be there for at least one more season. They're still going to have Tyrese Maxey. I'm assuming they're planning to trade James Harden, and although they're probably not going to get much for it, you should at least get some rotational players for James Harden. You might not be getting superstars and hella first round picks, but you should get quality NBA role players. Even if it is from the Clippers, you can get guys like Norman Powell, Marcus Morris, who although again aren't moving the needle for you, they should be able to get some minutes in an NBA game. So for that reason, I think the 76ers are a lock for a playoff team. Again, with the James Harden situation, I don't think they can get much further. With James being there and bought in, with Joel being there and winning an MVP, the most they've been to is the second round. We got to keep it a buck, right? We got to keep it a stack. And they did get a new coach in Nick Nurse, and I'm very hopeful for him. But I was hopeful for him in the event that James Harden returns, Tyrese Maxey takes a step, the team gels more, maybe adds a little bit around the edges. But there's a lot of turmoil going on right now. All right, Washington Wizards, DC, stand up. They just traded Bradley Beal for Chris Paul, who they traded again for Jordan Poole. They blew everything up. They did re-sign Kyle Kuzma. They traded Kristaps Porzingis. They're basically starting over. And the Washington Wizards are going to be, honestly, the worst team in the league next season. I truly believe, kind of sparsing, looking through these teams coming up, they're going to be one of, if not the worst team in the league next season. They will be square in contention for the first overall pick. I don't know what their draft pick situation is like off the top of my head because they did try to make some trades again with like Russell Westbrook and stuff earlier, trying to buy in to Bradley Beal. I'm assuming they have their first round pick this upcoming season, because if not, that would be very bad. But they're going to be terrible. They're going to be awful. Their best players, Jordan Poole / Kyle Kuzma, who are going to get a lot of shots. They're going to be chucking a lot of shots. Both of those guys can average career highs in points. But outside of that, there's not really much to look forward to. You did draft Bilal Coulibaly. See what he has. Maybe Denny can get some more development. You know, you see what you have in Jordan Poole, seeing if he can be, if not a number one option, at the very least a number two option. You know, seeing how he can run an offense, get more of the ball handling responsibilities, not really playing behind Steph. I've mumbled a lot. They're going to be awful. Point blank, period. Atlanta Hawks is a very interesting team because getting Quinn Snyder at the end of last season, I think, was a big win for them. He's a good head coach. We've seen what he can do with the Utah Jazz, taking them to the playoffs year after year after year. Trae Young, is a very polarizing player, but there's no denying the offensive star power is there. He's a massive liability on defense, but you're starting to put players around him. The John Collins thing didn't work. You shipped him away. You wash your hands with that. You don't have to pay him. You trade for Sadiq Bey, who I think will have a really good season. You got guys like DeAndre Hunter who have shown flashes, but haven't been consistent. Clint Capella, is it time to move on for him? So this team, for me, is very interesting because there's a wide range of outcomes that could happen. I think worst case scenario, they'll be a play-in team. But at the very best, if things go right, they had an Eastern Conference Finals run, and with a better coach, more continuity, who knows? But right now, I'm just going to put them as a playoff team. I don't see them being amazing. I don't see them being contenders or anything like that. But building off of last season, just having Trae Young and all the pieces around him, they should definitely, without a question, make the play-in like they did last season. But I do think with some improvements, with the defense and overall the team roster, everybody getting better, I think they can be a playoff team. Cavaliers, I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're quite ready to be championship contenders. We saw a lot of problems from them in the playoffs last year. I mean, it wasn't even close. I think they won one game against the Knicks, and even then it was kind of like more so the Knicks struggling to make shots than the Cavaliers really impressing. Their two big men struggled mightily in the playoffs. Jared Allen, we all know that quote. The lights were too bright for him. Evan Mobley, a lot to be desired still. Yeah, I'm going to need to see more from the Cavs. They did pick up some pieces in the offseason. Georges Niang, Max Strus, just to help their shooting situation. And I do think that those are important pieces that they added. They're going to be helpful. I don't see that, taking them over the edge. I don't, maybe they win a first round series this year instead of getting eliminated in the first round. But I don't see it from the Cavs yet. I'm going to need to see jumps from Mobley, from Garland, from Mitchell. Not that I don't think they can do it, but right now with the way things are looking, I think there are more questions than answers with this team. Detroit basketball. Where do we think Detroit's going? I really want to say they're going to be a play-in team just because I'm a big Cade Cunningham fan. I believe in him being a really, really good NBA player. But I'm going to just say that. The team is very young, though. Cade is coming off a season where he played like 12 games. They drafted Asar Thompson. They got Jalen Duren. They got James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley. They have some young pieces on the team, Jaden Ivey, but they are really, really young. So these are one of the teams that I'm like, I wish I had another tier. But, they're somewhere in here. They're somewhere competing for, I don't want to say they're in contention for the number one overall pick, because I think if they were, that'd be disappointing. But I also don't want to say that they're going to be necessarily a play-in team. Right now, I'm going to put them at the top of Victor Wembanyama, although I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the league. But I don't think that they're really going to be a play-in team. I just want to see them stay healthy and just build on, anything. They won like 16 games last year. They were the worst team in the league by far. They weren't good at all. And obviously, a lot of that was due to Cade Cunningham being hurt. But regardless, there's not a ton of expectations for me with the Detroit Pistons given their last season. They missed on some draft picks like Killian Hayes. Yeah, I just want to see more from them. Again, kind of like the Orlando Magic last year, where they didn't necessarily make the play-in even, but maybe started off rocky, but in the second half of the regular season took off and showed some promise. Indiana Pacers. You know what? This is my video. I'm doing what I want. I'm putting Indiana Pacers as a playoff team. I truly believe the Indiana Pacers are going to be a solidified playoff team. I really liked what I saw from them even last season. They were in the hunt for a playoff spot before Tyrese got hurt. Tyrese goes out with his injury. They slip out of the playoffs. At that point, no real way they're going to contend. They end up getting a draft pick. They draft Jarace Walker. They sign Bruce Brown. They trade for Obi Toppin, not really giving up much. They extend Miles Turner. Tyrese is a year older with a year of experience. He's playing great in FIBA. Benedict Mathurin is no longer a rookie, year two player. There's just a lot of good things going on for the Pacers team. And I'm just high on the Pacers. I like the guys I have there. A lot of high IQ players. A lot of players who can play together. Miles Turner doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. Tyrese can play off the ball, right? Bruce Brown, we've seen him play off the ball with Jokic. Obi Toppin never has the ball in his hands, but he's been effective as a floor runner and a spacer from the corner. They have a lot of good pieces. We even see Jarace Walker, who is one of my favorite rookies from this draft, can do a little bit of everything. Some people might think I'm crazy for locking them into a playoff spot, but I'm really high on the Pacers, and I think they have a good roster this season. I think they'll make some noise. Milwaukee Bucks, they should be championship contenders. I know Giannis, as of this recording, was talking about, if things aren't right, I won't sign. I won't sign an extension, but that's not it right now. Now, they did have a rough playoff exit last season, losing in the first round to an 8th seed. But, Chris Middleton didn't really play most of the season. He was in and out the lineup with injuries. Just never really developed any flow. Giannis got hurt in that matchup, and the Heat played extraordinarily. Jimmy put the backpack on, and notoriously the Miami Heat have been the Milwaukee Bucks kryptonite, beating them in several playoff series in the past. So I don't want to say give them a pass. I do see concerns with their team, but they did make a few pickups. They re-signed Brook Lopez, right? They got Chris Middleton back. They picked up Malik Beasley to add some shooting. Regardless of how you feel about them and what they did last season, they are a championship contender. They have one of, if not the best player in the league on their team. They have good supporting pieces, and although they're aging, I do have concerns about the depth on the roster. Nobody really talks about that. I mean, they got decent pieces like Bobby Portis, but Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder, they're okay. But nonetheless, with Giannis on your team, you're a championship contender. Toronto Raptors. Wow, Fred VanVleet's gone. Nick Nurse is gone. OG's on the team, but he's been in trade rumors for so long. Pascal, I mean, they've been open to trading him, but he doesn't want to leave. They drafted Grady Dick, who, we all love Dick, but I don't think that's going to elevate their ceiling that much more. I'm going to say that the Raptors are in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. I think, in fact, although they have good players, I think the Raptors are going to be worse than the Pistons next season, barring injury, obviously. I'm just not high on the Raptors. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff going on right now, switching head coaches, and you're going from a championship level head coach in Nick Nurse to an assistant coach from what team is he from? Was he from? Darko. I'm not gonna butcher his name. I don't remember. Darko R. Was an assistant coach for the Memphis Grizzlies, and there's already some stuff going on with him and the New York Knicks stealing plays or something. I don't know if it's him directly, but the organization. I'm just not liking the vibe around the Toronto Raptors this season. With the uncertainty, the fact that they didn't even make the playoffs last year, they lost. I know Fred was a chucker and threw up a bunch of shots last season. I think he had the most shot attempts in the league last year. Regardless of that, he is one of your best players. You don't really have a point guard anymore. I mean, you're going to run point Scotty maybe, but even if you do that, he's never had the responsibility of playmaking for your whole team for an entire season. And there's going to be ups and downs with that. Maybe he picks it up by the end of the year, but there's just too many question marks for the Raptors. The vibes are not there. I'm not feeling it. The whole Pascal situation, Gary Trent has even been rumored to be traded. Like, there's just a lot going on. And I would be willing to bet that the Raptors blow it up before they make it back to contention. Dallas Mavericks. I like what the Dallas Mavericks did this offseason. A lot of good moves around the edges. Drafting Derek Lively, adding Seth Curry, adding Richaun Holmes, getting off Bertans' contract. They still got to figure out what they're going to do with Christian Wood, re-signing Kyrie Irving. Jaden Hardy got another year. You gave Josh Green some good minutes last year. Hopefully he can develop on that. So I like what they did this offseason. All that being said, they didn't make the playoffs last year, so I can't jump them up too much. I do think they are a playoff lock. At least they should be. With Luka and Kyrie, a full season of that, you got some good help around the edges. You got some lob threats for those guys. Maybe some of the guys developing, like we said, Jaden Hardy, Josh Green a little more, Maxi Kleber still there. You should be a playoff team. With Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, those are two of the best guards in the league. Arguably both top two at their position, depending on who you ask. You should be a playoff team. Denver Nuggets, we don't really have to talk about this. They just won the championship. They have, in my opinion, the best player in the league. They have one of the best, if not the best, starting five in the league. Now, what I will say is they lost a lot of their depth. Pretty much all their depth. They lost Bruce Brown. They lost Jeff Green. And you're like, okay, there's just two players. Those are really the only two players they had off the bench in their entire postseason run. Christian Braun played a little bit, but he was a rookie. and he's going into year 2. You're shouldering a lot of responsibility on him to take over like that Bruce Brown off the bench role. You don't really have a backup big. You played DeAndre Jordan last year a little bit, barely. You can't really rely on him. You haven't been able to rely on him on any team. You did draft guys like Julian Strawther and whatnot, and you still have Peyton Watson and some of these young dudes, and hopefully they can make a leap and take on a bigger role, but that remains to be seen. I'm hoping maybe Peyton Watson can step into somewhat of a role, maybe a Jeff Green type role. I know that that's weird to say, but just being able to catch and shoot from the wing position or something, like just give me anything, brother. But their starting five's intact. They got, again, Jamal Murray, KCP, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, one of the best starting fives in the league, and just off that factor alone, they should be championship contenders. Memphis Grizzlies. They won't have Ja Morant for the first 25 games of the season. They did trade for Marcus Smart. He fits that grit and grind of Memphis very, very well. He's going to help them a lot, especially in those games Ja Morant is out. They did lose Dylan Brooks, so Marcus Smart kind of fills that hole of a wing defender. In fact, I think he could probably be more efficient and better. He doesn't quite have the size to him that Dylan Brooks does, but I trust him to make shots more. He's a much better playmaker, and he is smaller. Again, he does bring it defensively. So for them, I think they should be a solidified playoff team, even with Ja Morant missing a bunch of games to start the year. They should be a playoff team. I want to put them if things go right, but a lot of things have went wrong for the Grizzlies, especially this last season. So if things go really, really, really right, like super perfect, maybe they can be in if things go right, which, you know, sounds ridiculous saying it. So, you know, I can't put them in there quite yet. Minnesota Timberwolves. Very, very polarizing team in my opinion, because last year was a disappointment to say the least. I mean, you thought trading 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, going from a 7 seed, you were going to be a top-tier contender, maybe a top 5 seed in the West, when in reality you finished as the 7 seed once again. And I know Cat was injured, but Cat has his own problems that he presents, which is the reason why you traded for Rudy Gobert. So the real issue here is for them gelling together. I don't necessarily think, oh, you just bring Cat back and it just fixes their... No, it doesn't really work like that. But you did have a lot of things go well for them at the same time. Anthony Edwards took a big step. And if you're watching FIBA basketball, he's looking like he could be an MVP candidate in the next year or two. Jaden McDaniels was an all-NBA level defender. I know he didn't make it, but he played on that level. One of the best wing defenders in the league, and even showed a little bit offensively. You made some decent, you know, additions, getting Mike Conley for D'Angelo Russell, although I think it's kind of a lateral move. I think Mike Conley is a better fit for the Timberwolves. You need a lot of guys getting the ball over there as it is, and D'Lo was just another guy that was going to take the ball out of Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns' hands. And I think Mike Conley will do a good job of kind of getting guys involved appropriately and when they need to be involved. You know, I could see a super great best case scenario where Rudy Gobert gets back to being an elite rim protector. Anthony Edwards is an MVP candidate. Cat is an offensive juggernaut. Jaden McDaniels is giving you 15 points tonight with all NBA defense. You still got Mike Conley, but I think that's, again, similar to the Grizzlies. A lot of too many things need to go right for things to go right, if that makes sense. I'm going to keep saying that, but I think they're just a step away. What I really want to see from the Timberwolves this year is them dominating in the regular season. I don't want to say dominating, but just being a top team in the regular season, because we have not seen that from them. Over this period that they've had Karl Anthony Towns and trying to build around him, the 7th seed is, I think, the highest seed that they've ever gotten, if I'm not mistaken. With Jimmy Butler, they barely made the playoffs there with the 7th or 8th seed. The man, Jimmy, had to drag him all the way there. They never made the playoffs without him. You know, once they got Anthony Edwards, that one season where Patrick Beverley had the crazy moment of them winning the championship against the Clippers in the play-in game, right? They were 7th seed, lost to Memphis in the first round. Same thing last season. They were an 8th seed, actually, losing to the Lakers in the play-in and then losing to Denver in the first round. So they haven't really had any sort of dominant seasons, unlike the Memphis Grizzlies, whereas you can argue for the Memphis Grizzlies, they've been a top 2 seed multiple times. They just haven't really put it together in the postseason, similar to the 76ers and even the Hawks. The Timberwolves haven't even had that. So before I even put them in championship contender, let me see them win games they should win on a regular basis in the regular season. Let them be a top 4 seed, and then we can talk about them potentially being contenders after that. All right, the San Antonio Spurs. I think it would be pretty ironic if I didn't put them in Victor Wembanyama, but I also want to be objective, okay? But objectively speaking, they're not gonna be very good. I mean, how many wins can Vic realistically add to this team? Now, let me say this. I actually enjoy watching the Spurs. Although they won 22 games last year and were one of the worst teams, I think they play beautiful basketball. They share the ball. Everybody gets involved. I just love the system Greg Popovich runs. They're very selfless. They got smart, high IQ players that are developing and growing. They really invest in their players and want to see them grow. It's not really a secret they're one of the best ran organizations in NBA history. All that being said, though, I don't think they're just, the West is too stacked for them to climb into as a play-in team from a team that was arguably, that won the number 1 overall pick, right? It's just a big jump, even if Vic adds 8-9 wins to this team, they're a 30-31 win team. That's probably not good enough to make a play-in spot, but you don't even really need to see all that from the Spurs. You just want to see Vic make a contribution, look good. You want to see the other guys take steps. I'm not expecting all that much from the Spurs. I just am excited to watch them play basketball and show me what they have for the future. It's really just like a season for them to get to know each other, get to play well with Vic, develop him, making sure he gets used to the NBA game, the other guys developing their game around him and all that. I don't really think they even need to be a play-in team. Get another lottery pick, add it to this roster, and they're going to be really, really scary good moving forward. Utah Jazz. Now, this is very difficult for me to rank because, similar to the Pistons, I don't think they're going to be in contention for the number 1 overall pick, but I also don't think they're going to be a play-in team. Now, they looked really good last year. I don't want to get disrespectful towards the Jazz and act like they're not a good team and don't have a good roster. They have a lot of players I really like. They traded for John Collins for damn near nothing. I like players like THT. I like Lauri Markkanen. He's one of the best power forwards in the league. They still got Jordan Clarkson. Walker Kessler was, one of the best rookies in the association last year. So they have a lot of good pieces on the team. Ochai Agbaji, they drafted a lot of guys like Keontae George, who looked amazing in Summer League. All that being said, I think they have a chance to be a play-in team. They might be on the low end of play-in team because I don't know if they can really make it above the other teams in the West. But I wouldn't be surprised at the same time if they did. They played really well last season. They were literally all the way in the race for a play-in spot up until maybe the last few weeks of the season, even with guys missing games and them making all those trades, all the turnaround. Will Hardy has done a fantastic job coaching them over there. So, I wouldn't be shocked if they made a play-in spot next year. The Los Angeles Clippers, who I'm going to put here because I think this is a given if things go right. We've been saying this for the Clippers for the last, I don't know how many years, ever since Kawhi and Paul George got there. They have some of the best talent from a roster perspective in the whole league season after season. They get the best guys in the buyout markets. They make good trades, right? Trading second-round picks for Bones Highland, trading second-round picks for Mason Plumlee, getting Norman Powell for Keon Johnson, right? They're adding all these great players to the roster, but they can never put it together. Whether if it's one of them injured, both of them injured, guys not playing well, choking, guys not, there's so much going on, coaching from Doc, I could go on and on about the Clippers. I can't even form words. That's how many things are wrong with the Clippers. But if things go right, I think the ceiling of this team is a championship. The Clippers are the grade A example of if things go right team, because barring injury, they at least have one finals appearance, in my opinion. That year they lost to the Suns and they didn't have Kawhi Leonard because he tore his ACL. They took the Clippers to 6 with just Paul George. And we know Paul George, he's really like that because we've seen him be the number 1 on the team before. But you can't convince me if they had arguably a top 2 small forward in the NBA that they wouldn't have beat the Suns there. This season, they played Kawhi Leonard by himself, played against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and he put up a good fight. One of the best individual performances. I don't want to say that because, we've seen what he done in Toronto, but he played his ass off. He was amazing in the 2-1 game that he did actually play. Yeah, for the Clippers, it's all about health. If they stay healthy, they could win a championship, and it's the biggest if in sports history, honestly, because every year they're never healthy. But I'm gonna put. They got the talent. There's really not much they can do to improve this roster. Maybe a little better big man, a little better point guard, but damn, These guys have almost everything. They could do it if they put it all together. Phoenix Suns, championship contenders. Not really a secret. They traded for Bradley Beal this offseason, keeping DeAndre Ayton. And although they only had minimum contracts to fill out the rest of their roster, I think they did a good job of that. Picking guys up like Yuta Watanabe, Keita Bates-Diop. You know, these are guys, again, on minimum contracts for a reason. But I think they'll fill roles for them very well. Drew Eubanks kind of filling in for Jock Landale, and I believe they still have Bismack Biyombo, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he's still a free agent, but I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back. Portland Trailblazers, I mean, honestly, like, you know, the Dame situation going on. Will he get traded? Will he not? Where will he go? I'm gonna be honest with you, even if they had Dame, I don't think they're even making the fucking plan. I mean, you saw last year. I know Dame was out and got hurt and they shut him down, whatever. They didn't even make a plan. They weren't even close, honestly. Besides, like, the first 2 weeks of the season, they weren't even close to a playoff spot. And that was with Damian Lillard scoring 71 points in a game. I know they got Scoot Henderson, but he's a rookie and he plays the same position as Damian Lillard. So it's not like they added a position of need or something, filled a hole that they had. Dame, whether he stays there or not, he's not really engaged. He doesn't believe this team could win. That's very obvious. That's a red flag. I still have questions about Chauncey Billups as a coach. But yeah, Trailblazers, you should be competing for the #1 pick. And even if Dame is there, you guys are not going to be a playing team. I can't even see you squeaking it in, because I don't think Dame will just be engaged enough. The Kings. You know, they didn't really do much this offseason. They didn't do much bad, but they didn't do much good either. They kind of just brought back everybody they had. They signed Sasha Vesnikov, that forward from the EuroLeague. He'll help out their shooting a little bit, but you know, they didn't really do much. So I can't really put them any higher than they were last year. You know, the fact that they made the playoffs and ended their drought last year was a big dub for them, and you'd want to, you know, make progress off that. But for them, progress is probably just like winning a playoff series, maybe 2. But I'm just going to put playoff team. I can't really see them winning a championship next season, even if things go right. But I do believe they're a playoff lock. They should be. They just had a great season. Their roster is really good. And yeah, the New York Knicks. I really like the New York Knicks. I like how they're coached. I like their players. I like Brunson. I don't love Randall. That's the one guy I'm not a big fan of. RJ has questions too. You know, I just talked myself out of it. You know, I was going to put him if things go right, potentially, because of what happened last year. You know, they beat the Cavs pretty handedly. They gave the Miami Heat a pretty tough challenge. I just think they couldn't make shots in that series. But, you know, I thought they had a chance to win it if things went well and make the conference finals. But I do have questions about the team. I have questions about Julius Randle. You know, he's never been great in the playoffs, at least compared to his regular season stats. And I know he was injured. A lot of people bring that up, but the facts are the facts. If he comes out and proves us all wrong, I'd be happy. I would move them up, you know, if they win a championship, even better for the Knicks fans, right? But I just got to go off what I've seen. Even factoring in that ankle stuff, it's not like they've shown me this otherworldly level they can get to when they're healthy. So I'm just going to put them in a playoff team, which is fine. I mean, their next goal, again, similar to the Kings. I mean, they already won a series, but maybe get to the conference finals. Maybe have their young guys develop. They brought in Dante DiVincenzo, basically forming the Villanova squad over there. So I guess the next step is to trade for Mikal Bridges. All right, man. The next team is the New Orleans Pelicans, and I'm already face palming because I don't know. I don't know what to think with the Pelicans. I mean, if Zion plays, if BI plays, if CJ's still nice, right? If Valanciunas still got stuff, right? If they make there's a lot, but there's also like, if Zion doesn't play, it's tough, man. It's really tough to rank the Pelicans because they have a lot on the roster talent-wise, even guys like Dyson Daniels. I like Dyson Daniels a lot. He was one of my favorite rookies going into his draft. Good defender. For a rookie, but he needs to improve his offensive game to get a little more playing time. I like the potential there, though. I love Trey Murphy. He's one of my favorite players in the league. Yeah, I think it would be disrespectful to put them in Victor Wembanyama, but are they a playoff team or a play-in team? I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna put them in playoff team. And you're probably looking at this saying like, not all these teams can make the playoffs. You're probably right. But the NBA is talented, and I'm gonna be wrong on some stuff. And maybe I'll move some teams down when I get to the end of this. But right now, we're rocking with this. And for the Pelicans, what I want to see from them, really, let me be honest with you. I want to see Zion in a playoff series. That's really my biggest question for the Pelicans. Besides health, we obviously know that that doesn't have to be said with Zion and even Brandon Ingram, even CJ with his old age. But I just want to see Zion in a playoff series. I want to see how teams play him defensively. Are they going to force him to shoot? Are they going to wall him up? Can he make out of double teams? Can he get guys involved? Can he hit open jumpers? Will he have a mid-range? Like, how does he adapt to a 7-game series of teams guarding him? Because, the one time the Pelicans made the playoffs with Brandon Ingram, without Zion, they took that Suns team that made the finals to 6 games. And Brandon Ingram, by the way, incredible. One of my favorite players, super underrated. If you ask me, it's really up for debate who's the number 1 option on this team, although I can already see the hate comments. No, it's obviously Zion. And I know Zion, otherworldly talent, but I just love Brandon Ingram's game. He's a 3-level scorer. He's an underrated playmaker. He can defend decent when he wants to. He has the length to do it. And even with him, they should be a playing team, just him. But man, I want to see Zion in the playoffs. That's really what it comes down to. I really do want to put him in if things go right, because, coming off that season where they did take the Suns to 6 games, we thought, okay, Zion's going to come back. He's going to be healthy. BI looks great. We still got CJ. Trey Murphy's going to take a step. Draft Dyson Daniels. We're looking real good, but they just couldn't stay healthy, and they couldn't build any continuity. They couldn't build any rhythm, and there are still some questions on this roster, but I think the biggest question is health. Charlotte Hornets. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. No question. No question. I don't really have to say much for that. LaMelo, he might be fun. Miles Bridges coming back might be fun. Some more lobs, hopefully. Brandon Miller, see what he can do. I wasn't the biggest Brandon Miller fan. I really thought Scoot was a clearly better prospect, and remains to be seen if that will be true. But Houston Rockets, also Victor Wembanyama, although they did get a lot better. I wouldn't think it's crazy to see them be a play-in team, but they got a lot of young guys. They got a lot of vets. They paid a lot of money to these vets. The vets they paid money to will help them in terms of locker room and leadership and just directing them. But at the same time, they're going to take minutes away from them. Fred VanVleet plays at the same position they drafted a top 4 rookie in Amen Thompson. They still got Jalen Green, who needs guard minutes. What are you going to do with KPJ, right? You signed Dylan Brooks, but you got Tari Eason. I mean, you still got Jabari Smith, who's more of a 4, but he could play some wing. You still got Jayshawn Tate. I know he probably isn't that important to you, but you got Cam Whitmore as well, who you drafted. Some guys aren't going to play very much in this first year at Houston. And I think a lot of the season is going to be about figuring out who's in the long-term plans. Are we trading some of these guys? Who's starting? Who's getting what role? Who fits best in what role? Getting these vets that they signed to mentor the young players and just giving them some sort of structure. Ime Udoka is there, though, which he's a really, really good head coach. This kind of makes me want to put him in a playing team. I do like what the Rockets did. A lot of people aren't fans of it, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I think this is a good developmental year. Last year, they didn't have a direction. I don't even know what their system was. They just said, hey, everyone, let's collectively get together, put on a Rockets jersey, and play basketball. Like that was the game plan every single game. This year, they might actually have strategies. They might make adjustments. They probably won't let somebody score 71 points on them. So that's improvement in and of itself. Miami Heat. Interesting team. They made the playoffs last year, barely, but then they made a finals run, and they've been in the finals before, but then the offseason came. They lost a lot of players. They lost Max Strus. They lost Gabe Vincent. They didn't really do anything to address those issues. I mean, they brought in Thomas Bryant and drafted Jaime Jaquez, but I mean, they always find guys to make plays. Maybe Haywood Highsmith takes a larger role this year and shows his NBA capabilities. I don't really know. You can't really ever count the Heat out. They could always trade for Dame, so it's kind of up in the air. So just to be safe, I'm going to put them in playoff team. I think they could be championship contenders, especially trading for Damian Lillard. Even with their roster right now, if things go right, they could probably, I don't want to say win the finals, but definitely make the finals. But I don't know. I have a little bit too many, Tyler Hero too. He wasn't there for the playoffs. I guess you got to factor that in. Would he have helped? How much would he have helped, especially in that nugget? I don't know. I'm going to put him at the top of playoff team. I know these aren't really in order, like I said, but it's hard for me to rank the Heat because you always look at their roster and you're like, damn, this team should not be as good as it is, but they just exceed expectations every year, almost every year. You can't count out Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra. Again, very tempted, and I might move them up. We will see after I rank the rest of these, but right now, playoff team. Chicago Bulls, play-in team. I mean, they could make the playoffs, but if they do, don't see them making much noise. Lonzo Ball situation really screwed him over, honestly. I mean, they had something going with him. They were a top 6 seed with him. They looked good. He was the point guard that they needed, and now they've been basically trying to fill that void ever since he got injured. You know, bringing in Caruso, signing Javon Carter this offseason, re-signing Ayo Dosunmu. They're not like Lonzo Ball. Unfortunately, they don't do the same things. You know, there are more problems than just Lonzo not being there, but he is a big factor in them not really being able to do much. I do have concerns about Vucevic and his lack of defensive capabilities and rim protection. I think having a rim protecting big is one of the most important pieces to have on an NBA team in 2023. You don't necessarily have to have some dude who's going to block every shot and be a defensive player of the year candidate, although it would be nice, but just somebody like Jokic at least, who takes up space down there, who gets up in their airspace. He's not going to jump and block shots, but he's there putting a body on you, just being physical, being tall, putting his hands up, being in the right place, right time. I don't know if Vucevic is that. I think he might just be limited by his size a little bit and his athleticism, just a combination of those two. Yeah, the Bulls are a playing team. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I don't see them, you know, they could make the playoffs, but that's about it. Brooklyn Nets, also a play-in team. I mean, I also do think that they could miss the playoffs entirely. If there is a team that made the playoffs last year that I think has the highest chance to drop out, it's easily the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, they made it to the playoff kind of off the fact that KD and Kyrie were there like 57% of the season or whatever. They kind of went on a losing streak after the trade happened. They stayed afloat, won enough games to stay in there. But, you know, there are concerns. Mikal played great in a number one option role. But do we think that's the ideal scenario for him is the real question. He showed that he is capable of scoring like a number one option. But do we want Mikal to be our number one option is the question. A lot of these guys, like we can even see maybe with Jordan Poole, are capable of scoring like a number one option. But is that going to lead to wins? Is that the best use of this player's abilities? I love Nicholas Claxton. I like the defensive potential they have. If Ben Simmons, that's the biggest X factor for them. If Ben Simmons could get back to being even what he was just in his rookie season. I know that's crazy to say, but just get back to giving us 12, 7, and 7. Good defense, good playmaking, you know, making layups at least. They could easily be a playoff team. And honestly, I'm ready to get hurt again. So, you know, I am believing that Ben Simmons will have a better year, but I still think I'm going to put them in a play-in spot, because even if Ben Simmons gets back to what he was, they could just end up making a play-in and make the playoffs, but we'll see. I'm going to put them in play-in just to be safe, because we don't know what these guys are going to do, how they're going to develop. What if Mikal really does shine in that number one option role and shows us that he is more than capable of being the guy, you know, a la Paul George with the Pacers. OKC Thunder. I really like the OKC Thunder, man. You know, I'm not going to put him here because that's kind of crazy, but to me, they're a playoff lock. I mean, year after year, we think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Since they got Chris Paul and Shea, right? Ever since those seasons, we're like, they're not going to be good. Every year, we're like, Thunder are not going to be good. We didn't think they'd make the playoffs with Shea and Chris Paul. Okay, they defied all the odds. They had like a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. They did it anyway. Year after that, okay, they traded Chris Paul. They're officially blowing it up. They have no chance, yada. They were competitive for a lot of the season. And I know because my Lakers got smacked by them multiple times. They were in a lot of games they should not have been in. They won a lot of games you didn't expect them to win. They also had some ugly losses, like the largest loss in NBA history to the Memphis Grizzlies. But they are a young team. And they also had a lot of players I've never heard of playing for them in some games this last season. Also, we didn't really think they'd make the playoffs because Chet got hurt. You know, they have a lot of guards, but they were a play-in team. I mean, the next logical step for them, getting Chet back, a year of development for Jalen Williams, another year of development for Josh Giddey, Shea coming off an All-NBA season, one of the most I want to say underrated players in the league, but he just made All-NBA first team, so I think you can't really be overrated anymore. They're going in playoff team. Golden State Warriors. Are they championship contenders? They have to be. They have to be. They have Steph Curry. They have Steph Curry. They have Klay Thompson. They have Draymond Green. There are a lot of questions regarding the young guys, regarding Chris Paul. They lost Jordan Poole. They're relying on their players, making steps. They did sign a few players like Dario Saric and Corey Joseph. But again, a lot of it is going to be relying on young players making steps. We saw Kuminga looking pretty good in Pro-Am, but I'm taking that with a grain of salt because Peyton Pritchard looks good in Pro-Am. So, it is what it is. But with Steph Curry, with the trio, you have a chance. You're a championship contender. Even, not even in this scenario. You're just straight up a championship contender. You get the right matchups, you could easily win a championship. Somebody else takes out the Nuggets for you, or whatever team that you struggle with, the Lakers or whatever. You have a chance to win the title. Simple as that. Boston Celtics, not really much room needed for explanation. They made the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't know, like 4 of the last 5 years or something. They have one of the best players in the league, one of the 2 best wings in the league. They just added Kristaps Porzingis, one of the best big men. Probably top 10 power forward center in the league. So not much explaining to do. You guys know the Celtics have been pretty good ever since they drafted Tatum, and that will continue going into next season. They should be one of, if not the favorite to win the championship next year. I'm trying hard to not be biased because I'm a Laker fan, lifelong Laker fan, die-hard Laker fan. I'll fight you about the Lakers if it really comes down to it. If things go right, because if we're talking about injuries with the Clippers, we kind of got to talk about injuries with the Lakers a little bit, but at the same time, like, the Lakers have been considerably more healthy than the Clippers over the last few years. They have a championship to show for it. Last year, besides LeBron kind of at the end of the year dealing with that ankle thing, AD was healthy and they both played throughout the entirety of the playoffs. So yeah, fuck it, I don't even care. This is my video. I'm putting Lakers in championship contenders. We got the best player of all time, in my humble opinion. Although he is going into year 21, he's still up there and he still provides a lot, right? The defense might not be what he used to. His athleticism probably dropped off a little. He takes some atrocious threes sometimes and doesn't get back on defense occasionally. He's still one of the greatest playmakers of all time in the league, period. One of the best passers, including out of the post. He's still one of the best drivers of the basketball. He could get to the rim at will. He could find guys. He's good at being an on-court coach, right? And an on-court GM too. Nah, I'm just playing. AD, in my opinion, it's not even close. He is the best defensive player in the league, and I'm not even trying to be biased. I could back these up with numbers. Like, I'm not going to do that because this video is already way too long, but the blocks speak for themselves. The stocks, he's lengthy. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to ride his dick in this video, but Austin Reeves too. We saw what he could do in the playoffs, and you see what he's doing in FIBA. It's real. I know a lot of people are Austin Reeves haters because he plays for the Lakers. I think he's really like that. Not saying he's an all-star or a franchise player, but he reminds me a lot of CJ McCollum, and not necessarily in the way they play. Maybe a little bit, but more so in like he will be that fringe all-star type of player where, he may never make an all-star team, but he'll always be in conversations just because of how good he is and what he contributes to winning. Although, he may not put up 25 points a game and average 13 assists or whatever. Feel free to let me know if you disagree. And last team is the Orlando Magic, who I'm going to put as a play-in team. Now, they're on kind of the same tier as like the Pacers and the Thunder, right? Which is, kind of surprising if you're like super high in the Magic. Like, okay, you're putting these two teams as a playoff lock, but you're not putting the Magic there. Well, I think I've seen more from these two teams than the Magic. Let's talk about the Thunder real quick. They already made the play-in. And like I've said, they've defied odds every single season, exceeded their win total almost every year over the past like 3 or 4 seasons. So Pacers, kind of like the inverse of what the Magic did last year, although there's like more reasoning to why they fell off. They started the season off really good as like a solidified playoff team, and then Tyrese got hurt. They also made a lot more additions. The Magic are kind of relying, they did draft players like Anthony Black and Jet Howard, but they're kind of relying on their own players like Paolo and Markelle and Franz, Wendell, like to take steps up. They didn't really add new players that could potentially help them outside of the draft. And although I do think they're capable of making improvements, in fact, I think a lot of them will make improvements. I'm actually really high on the Magic. I got to go over this because it seems like It's got to be 8-8 or at least 10-10 in each conference. Yeah, let me go over this. Okay, I made one revision, and I said I'd do this earlier. I moved Heat up here to if things go right. We've seen the Heat defy odds, and if things go right, in my mind, that also means with trades, and if things go right, they could have Damian Lillard, right? And, you know, you could be like, oh, wait, well, you could just say that for every team, because what if the 76ers traded for Anthony Davis, right? But realistically, the Heat are damn near the only team on here that are close to getting a superstar in Damian Lillard. Nobody else is really up for trade except James Harden, which he goes to the Clippers, which that doesn't really change anything for them because their if things go right is health, not really skill. Yeah, I think the Heat are the only team with a chance to gain a superstar, and even without the superstar, just, you know, grit and grind, work hard, whatever, the culture is there. There's enough chance they make, I mean, I don't want to say they make the finals again, but they make the finals again, okay? Yeah, there's 19 teams in here, which I understand the math doesn't add up. So let me do it like this. I'm going to put the 3 teams in the back of playoff team that most likely to fall to the play-in. But realistically speaking, the Pacers haven't made the play-in yet, so they'd be skipping a step by making the playoffs. I'm just that high on them. But again, if they made the play-in, I wouldn't be shocked. Same thing with the Thunder. If they didn't make the playoffs and just made the play-in, I wouldn't be shocked either. And I guess the Pelicans too, being in the play-in. With them, it's health. It's straight up health. Every other team here, I don't really have as many concerns. Even with the 76ers, it's a little too crazy to put them as a play-in team because they do have Joel Embiid, even with the Harden situation, even with a new coach, even with all the, you know, smoke and mirrors going on in the organization right now. They're still too good for that. I mean, I guess if I want to say maybe the Hawks, I can't put the Mavericks, even though they missed the play-in entirely. I mean, they got Luka and Kyrie, man. Just think, come on, if you miss the play-in 2 seasons in a row with Luka and Kyrie, there's got to be some changes made. Like, if they don't make the play-in at the very least, it'll be tragic for the Mavericks. So, I mean, all these other teams should be better. I think what I have here is what it is. These aren't in any particular order except like the back half of this playoff team, just so the math adds up, because there can only be 16 playoff teams and 20 play-in teams, yet the numbers don't add up to that. So I'll have these 3 in the back of playoff teams. So, you know, these are the, in my opinion, if I had to pick 3 teams from this tier that are the least likely to make the playoffs, it would be these 3, probably in this order. I mean, I could switch these up, but the Pelicans, man, again, the talent is there. The health is just like the biggest question mark. That is it. That is my NBA contender tier list. This video is going to be probably very, very long. If you enjoyed it though, drop me a like, drop me a sub. Let me know your tier list in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about my tier list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And why? I'd be happy for any of these teams at the bottom to prove me wrong. Like, it would be pretty crazy if Victor Wembanyama just came out and turned the Spurs into a playoff team. Like, I would love to see that. Again, if you disagree, it's totally fine. Let's have a conversation about it, because maybe I'm sleeping on some of these teams and I shouldn't be. So thanks for tuning in again. If you enjoy NBA content, drop me a sub. I'm going to be doing a lot more of that on here. Take care, everyone. Have a blessed day. See you on the next one.